Hello and welcome to Ask an Author with Julia Kelly. Thank you for joining us just a couple minutes late. We were sorting out some technical issues, but we are here now and very excited to talk to the wonderful Mary Alice Monroe. Welcome.
Oh, Julia, hello.
It's so lovely to see you and to hear your voice, and also to be able to congratulate you for hitting the New York Times bestseller list with
It,
the book
Thank you.
Summer of Lost and Found.
Thank you. It's always, one never takes it for granted. And so I'm delighted and always the jump up and down feeling, the pitter patter of the heart. It's just you're so filled with gratitude too for the readers for picking up your book.
Absolutely. It's the best feeling in the world knowing that there are people wwho want to read your stories and who connect with them. So
So true.
congratulations. Well, I want to ask you all about this book, which I actually have a physical copy of. This never happens to me. I'm so excited about this. Because mostly I read on my iPad, but I just absolutely loved this book. And I think there's something really special about it, especially, now reading it, knowing everything that we know about the last year. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what people will find when they pick this book up.
This story is really, I think, one of the, if not the first book to roll out that's set against the pandemic. And I made the decision early on in April when I sheltered in place. And I was up in the mountains and I wasn't going to go anywhere to research a new species, which is what I usually do, jump out and into the ocean and start researching. With this book, it was um, with this book.
Live video. There's always little things. I was on a live author panel on Monday and got a message from my neighbor saying it's raining really hard, check your cellar. And sure enough, I dropped my video and my cellar was flooded. So this is the wonders of live video. And
I know.
you never know what's going to happen.
You never know. So this is especially when you're borrowing someone's computer because of technical difficulties. But anyway, this book was setting against the pandemic. It's not about the pandemic, but I really thought this was a great opportunity to study the interpersonal relationships. And so I told the story of the Rutledge family, which is a family in the Beach House series that I've been writing for 20 years. And I knew this family. So if I was going to test a family, it would be this one. And it's three generations. And I know that in this whole pandemic, globally, it affected all age groups.
Absolutely.
And differently. So I brought it out for the Beach House, and it's the seventh book in the series, but I do always say I write each book with a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a confined book unto itself. So it's a story. It opens up with the young girl, Linnea, 25 years old, who's furloughed, and it's a job she loves, and she's out of work. And like a lot of other young people, she doesn't know where she's going to live, what kind of money situation is. And the next generation, her Aunt Kara, who owns the Beach House, says, "Don't worry about it. This is the legacy of the Beach House, women supporting women. I've got your back." So this is the legacy that Linnea, the young 25-year-old, says, "I take this personally. I take this to heart." And throughout the novel, she lets other people come in. It's her roommate is the woman from the aquarium who is also furloughed. It's a little testy relationship at 1st. And then you have her brother coming in who doesn't want to live with mom and dad. And then her boyfriend. By the way, England is big in this book.
I noticed. I felt like there's a little personal touch there for me.
It was Julia, absolutely. But I love London in particular. And I set it up without planning for it that Cooper was studying at Oxford already, her brother, and that the gentleman married to Kara has business in England. So he was over there. So I set it up that people were trying to get home from England, including her boyfriend, who's a marine biologist, looks like Sean Evans from Endeavor. He's a surfer. I mean, he's got it all. And so he is trying to come in. And next door, and quarantining was the defining issue for a lot of us when we were traveling or anything, or going out. You met someone, were you sick, you came home, and you separated yourself. So that was an important issue in this time. So her old boyfriend that broke her heart is next door. And she's now in a triangle, which she never intended to be part of. And so throughout the story, it really is a lot of ups and downs and generations looking after each other. Linnea has choices to make. And throughout the story, it's a time of also self-exploration as we go through this time like no other. And Linnea realizes that it's not just about what man am I going to choose, but what am I going to choose for myself. And that's at the heart of the book.
I loved the fact that I love romance. That's where I got my feet wet and started in publishing. But this is about sort of her, as you say, her own journey of self exploration as
Yes,
well, how she wants to move through the world, the type of person she wants to be to other people in her life. And that's such a wonderful reminder of, the pandemic had a lot of really negative things about it. Obviously, it's, goes without saying, but also there was this time to have a bit of a step back and reflection, I think, when things are just completely different and your life has been changed. What do
yes,
you want to be once you come out of it, and who do you also want to be within
exactly.
it?
That's exactly the point. Thank you for saying that. I felt with every book that I write, there's always something I want to say that I learned. Usually it's through a species that I've worked with. What are the animals teaching me? But in this is what did I learn from the interpersonal relationships that I observed? I was living it myself. I wrote this in real time. So it was the hardest book I ever wrote. But what was it I wanted to say through Linnea and through Kara, these women of different generations? And it really crystallized when I finished the book because I changed my mind so many times because I was living it. It was really
Yeah,
hard.
absolutely.
But I learned to pivot, to not always plan and to count on those plans coming true. It's like having technical difficulties trying to get online. You can't always be sure of what the next day is going to bring. So you live each day to the fullest.
Mhm.
And I think that was something many of us learned as we took a deep breath and we're reimagining what our life is like. How am I going to live this day? How am I going to respond? I'm with you now, Julia, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm not going to think about anything else but this moment because
Yes.
you don't know what's coming. So I
Marielle, I think unfortunately we've lost your connection here for a moment. I'm just going to double check it's not something on my end and we're doing okay here. Let me just see. You guys bear with us here. If you do have questions, you can go ahead and drop those in the comments. If for some reason the feed goes down, we will make sure and make time to bring this all back. But I think I see you now again. So, this is part of the
yes,
challenge.
thank you. I saw for a moment. Yeah. We have a very unstable connection because of some sort of an outage here. So, and we're across the pond, so it's a bit of a long distance.
Exactly. So, but no, I think you're absolutely right. As you said, it was a moment to pause and a moment to pull yourself closer together with the people
Mm,
that were around you. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the people that populate this book, and the family at the center of it, because I know some readers will be very familiar with some of these characters, but for some people they're going to be brand new. So perhaps you can give us a little bit of an idea of who we
yeah.
see along the way.
Well, this series, and it's hard for me to believe this, it's been going on for 20 years. The first book came out in 2002, and it's set on Isle of Palms in South Carolina against the backdrop of the sea turtles that come to nest every year. And I introduced Kara, who was a 40-year-old woman at the time, a lone swimmer, a woman who was all about business and her career, came to visit her mother during her last summer of her life. And she really intended to go back to the north and never stay. She had a bad history with her father. And life intervenes and she stays. She falls in love for the first time. And this is book one. I meant for that to be the only book, but it was my first New York Times hit. So and the response was overwhelming.
Mhm.
And I realized it greenlit my ability to set books that are set against an endangered species, which is where I live. I'm a conservationist and I work with wildlife all the time. So whenever I had a book that was set against the beach, either with dolphins or pelicans or some sort of wildlife I wanted to bring out, I went back to this historic Charleston family. And over the last 20 years, they've all aged. So Kara is still the heroine of the series, but she's approaching 60 now.
Mm.
Linnea was a little girl in book one. In this book, Summer of Lost and Found, she's 25, 26. She's gone through a lot. She's beginning to emerge as the heroine of the next generation. and carrying that legacy of the beach house. Cooper's a young boy in the first book, and now he's 22. He went to Oxford and he's feeling his oats, and he's a handsome young man and dying to get back to London. And we have the other characters. We have the young friends, those who live in the area.
Just take a moment, it's fine. Yeah, if you guys do have questions, we'll go ahead and answer as many as we can a little further along in our conversation. So
it's funny, I think I'm losing my voice. so many interviews, but Cooper is the brother. Then we have the generations. Palmer, who's always Linnea's father, always investing and making bad mistakes. There's some people who are like that. His wife Julia, who's the mother, a very traditional Southern wife and mother, wants her daughter married and living close by, which chafes Linnea. Another very touching character is an older woman who was fiery and on the turtle team in the 40s in the first book. Now she's in her 80s. I'm sorry, she was older. Now she's in her 80s, and she has Alzheimer's. And that's such a critical issue for so many families now. And in this book, she's slipping dangerously into her senility. And the family's watching out for her, as we all watched out for our older family members and loved ones during the pandemic. And so we see all these characters growing and maturing. And if you just opened up this book, you have this family who live close together. And they form this pod. So you have multi-generations and I don't know what they call them in London. Pod is what we called it here.
Or support bubble.
A support bubble. And so this is the support bubble. So you have a couple friends, you have these two young men in a triangle, you have the older woman. So you've got a lot going on, but through it all, and it's funny moments, there are heartfelt moments. I mean, difficult moments, but also them gathering in the backyard with Jeremiah the bullfrog and, seeing the sea turtles and looking at this, what is exotic in your own backyard? I'm not exploring whales or dolphins. I'm exploring the birds that came to my feeder. I'm exploring the snake that might be racing down the road. What's in my own backyard? And I think that was a hint to all my readers to do that. The exotic lives right outside.
Well, and there's so much also so much to enjoy if you're able to sort of tap your creativity. And I think that's one of the touching moments of this is you see ways that people create their own fun, their own enjoyment within, again, that very small space and that small dynamic of a contained group of people. And I think the book really, you see such affection and such, love come through in those moments, which does remind me of those better moments in the pandemic when you saw people really kind of pull together in the ways that hopefully we'll be talking about for years and years.
And that's why I love the title, the Summer of Lost and Found, because yes, we acknowledge it was a tough time for a lot of us, and we lost our freedoms, we lost loved ones, we lost, there was a lot of frustrations. We went through the 5 stages of grief. We went through denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I mean, we all went through that. But because we were forced to slow down, because family members often either came together or they missed each other, we had heightened emotions as we would in any wartime. We were, anytime there's that outside threat, I think the human spirit shines and love relationships are challenged and created. And that's what I wanted to show, is that this really was a wartime mentality and that there were unique moments that happened only because we were in this situation. And that's what I think made the story interesting for me to write, and I hope to read.
And I think one of the things about that mentality is also that you get a book of second chances. You have a lot of characters who, whether it's second chances at relationships or second chances at sort of presenting yourself to your family and proving that you're not the person that everybody assumes you were, because that's the way you were at 17. It's a lovely way of having a chance to reassess.
Julia, I am so impressed you caught that. And I'll tell you where that, you are an astute reader. Hi, Mark, young lady. Hi, Mark. I have to say why I brought that in. When I was up in the mountain house I was telling you about when the shelter, I have a house up in North Carolina, which is not far from where I live, but it's in the mountains. And I called my sisters. I'm one of five. And one of my sisters was in Chicago, a big city, in a condo, locked down, not working. And I said, get out of the city, come to the mountains. And she did. And then I have another sister, a younger one, who was in LA, and she couldn't work, was alone. I said, come to the mountains. And she did. And then there was the 30-year-old girl who lost her job and had nowhere to go. And I said, stay with me. So here we were, sort of like the people in the beach house. And we could never have come together, stopped our work, and just lived with each other for a summer if it wasn't for that. So that sense of, joining together, watching each other, that the connections that were made at a very unique time came from my own personal life. And that's where you caught it.
Yeah, but it's wonderful. And in some ways, I think one of the reasons I recognized it was that's what my family did. Although I'm an American, we're all here in the UK, and we've had 3 lockdowns. We did the second lockdown, which was November to the end of December. Ish, depending on where you were in the country. We did that together. It was my sister and her husband, their 2 cats, my parents, my family dog, and
Oh,
myself. We
fabulous.
all just went up to my parents' house, which is a beautiful home that we all have space in, and we worked together, and we cooked together, and it was such a wonderful experience because I don't know when else as an adult we're all going to be able to do that. And it was really a making the best of a situation, and finding a lot of joy in that as well.
We call it our Camelot. It just happened. It was a brief moment in time. Yes, we were spraying the boxes and wearing the masks and all that, which I think is important to look back on.
Yes.
But as you said, it was those, when else could we have done that? That's why I say the found is found moments, found memories, found redirections of life, like Annabelle in the story, Anna. My niece, I was inspired by her. Anna decides, I loved my job, but it's not what I want to do anymore. I want to be more effective in my life. She went back to school. And a lot of people did that.
Yeah.
They self-explored and said, I want to go in a different way. Or their job disappeared and they're going to go in a different way. I do think all of us hopefully are going to step out of this. And I wanted the book to be inspiring, to say, look, consider these things. My characters did. Consider what you are going to do at that scene when there's unscarred sand.
Yeah.
And Linnea's about to walk on it. What's that footprint going to look like?
It's such a lovely sentiment. And I think so many people had that moment of assessing, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my relationships to look like when things open back up again? I've had this moment to pause. How do I
Yes.
take that forward? And as you say, in some cases, for some people, myself included, just be more present, be more,
Yeah.
in the moment, and not worried about, putting dinner on the table and where am I going to go? And, what do I have to do 4 weeks from now? There are
I'm
moments.
enjoying I'm enjoying life more because of that. Whenever I get harried, like when this disconnection,
Yeah,
take a deep breath and say, like
reminder.
you said at the beginning, we'll get through this. We can do this.
Yeah.
And it does make you a nicer person. I went through that anger and bargaining phase, and I don't want to do that anymore.
I agree. I agree. I had my moments of stomping my feet and throwing a mini temper tantrum and, just
Sure.
being sick and tired of it. And then I do think you sort of, as you say, you go through the various stages of grief, you go through some, introspection and hopefully come out in a better place. So, yeah.
I'm anxious to get back to London too. I'm writing a book set in London, so we'll see what happens. As soon as I can get in there, I'm coming back. I'll take you to dinner.
Well, I was gonna say, you let me know and I
Oh,
will
I
make
will.
sure that we get some time to spend some time, some quality time.
Thank you, darling. I'll be there.
Um, I am going to ask you about writing this book against a pandemic, and you've talked about it a little bit, but I can only imagine, because this book does span a period of time, how much must have changed. You must have started out at the beginning of this book, just as we did with the beginning of
Oh,
the pandemic, and thought, we thought this was going to be done in 6 to 8 weeks because
I know. I know.
And sure enough, we're just starting to open up now in a
Right.
really significant way. So how was it trying to work through the challenge of everything changing around you while you were also working through this book?
It was the hardest book I ever wrote because of that. And my usual process is I don't have a story idea. I have a species,
Hmm.
and then I'm inspired by it. And I trust my intuition. And that's the thing of even with this book, my intuition, what am I going to write next, right now? And it's what Joseph Campbell talked about, that artists, writers are the shamans of today, that we have to put our ear to the ground and listen. And I believe that's true if you just allow that shamanism in you to run strong.
I love that idea.
So yeah, it's really true. Your instinct, you get the hover, this tingling. So usually I choose a species and then I do academic research. I have to make sure that it's calling to me. Once is done, I go and talk to experts in the field. And I'm pretty well known now in the natural world. So people know that I can reach an audience, the popular audience, that they may not in a journal. So they open their doors. And then the best part is I dive in and I work with the animals. And it's hands-on. I do every kind of dirty job. And from all that, I pull together what I learned from the animals and I create themes and plots and dialogue. And I'm a structuralist. I know where that climax and resolution is going to be. I know the end. So here I am stuck in a house in the mountains in 2020, and I'm not going to research any animals. And I realize I'm going to start, observing humans in this situation.
I was going to say, the humans are your species in this.
Humans are my species, but there's no time to study and reflect. I think books will be coming, but I needed to get a book done by this year. And I trusted myself to be able to do it. But as you said, from April to June, then June to October, October to December, my story changed because I was changing what we thought, what we felt, what we were learning about ourselves changed. So I was constantly struggling with this book, ripping it apart and changing it. But I got it. When I wrote the last scene, I got it. And you get that sense, when you finish a book and you say,
Yeah.
I did it. And I felt exhausted, but really elated because, as I said, I knew that my message for all my characters was live each day to the fullest. And that is the overriding theme of the whole novel is to learn that lesson and then to enter the next phase with great hope and gratitude for our health. Everyone in the book went through a lot. There were hellos and goodbyes, as I said, lost and found. But at the end, they all emerged, as I think we did, all my characters, and I hope this is inspiring. We emerged better for it. And that's hard to accept, but I think we will. It's like people are looking at, where were you when the Twin Towers fell?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you when JFK was shot? Where were you? I mean, every country has those moments, those crystalline moments. We will be asking, what did you do? Where were you in the pandemic of 2020?
It's an interesting question. And as you say, everybody has a moment in this book where they come out of it and you think they're going to be okay. They're going to figure things out,
Yes.
but it may take some time for some of them. And I imagine that does open up some wonderful avenues for future books. So I'm
Well, I
hoping
did leave it
that.
off. Well, the thing about no planning, I wasn't going to be able to plan all the futures. But when they left, I knew when every young person walked, even Emmy, the older woman, my God, that woman deserves a break. I have to write another book just to give Emmy, who hasn't had a lover in 20 years.
Oh no.
We got to do something for that poor woman.
Yes.
But I mean, every single character walked out the door, and you had a sense that you don't know at 25 what the world's going to open up for you, but you're on the right path if you know yourself. And that's what these young kids all had to do, is to trust their own self. And then whatever decisions they make will be fine. And they have their family to back them up.
I wish that I knew that lesson at 25 and trusted in the process a little bit more. So hopefully some people will try.
They will.
So
I'm the old crone. I can say that now at this point in my life. I can tell the kids that. Whether they listen, I can't control.
well, I'm very curious about the idea of introducing a new generation of characters into this series, which is clearly beloved and people are so excited about it. And do you get nervous about the idea of, there are these characters who I've focused on for a long time. I've told their stories. Their stories are still going, but they're not the main focus anymore. We're moving to a different generation of people. Is there a sense of, this is new and this is a little scary, or do you really know this
Oh,
is
I
what?
know. I know. It's like the mom and dad are still there. Aunts and uncles are still there. And they'll be there for a long time. And it'll be the juxtaposition of the generations, which I think is always so interesting in real family dynamics. But I do think the young ones are the ones who are forging um, the next paths. They're the questions that'll be arising. And sooner or later, they'll be taken care of, the
Yeah.
older generation. I don't know when this is going to end, but as long as my readers, it's like the Mitford series, which I really love. Jan Carone, I mean, she had 50 or something. It's like, I'm a slacker by comparison. But, I do like to write my standalone independent novels in between. I'm starting another novel now, and I'm very excited about it. It'll take me a couple years to write it. So, and middle grade, I've started middle grade. So I have a lot in the fire. And in fact, my middle grade book comes out in 2 weeks. I'm pretty overwhelmed. I'm excited but overwhelmed. And
Yes.
it's again a low country book, and I've always wanted to write for middle grade. It's called The Islanders, and it takes place on a small sanctuary right next to Isle of Palms, accessible only by a ferry, where there are no cars, no stores, and for these kids, these 3 kids, no Wi-Fi. So I've unplugged them and I'm making their imagination play. And that's a theme that I've actually used a lot in the Beach House series and all my books to unplug, to not be afraid of what's outdoors. The wild is really your backyard. We share this planet. And it's a mindset of where we fit in, not only in life. I always look for the parallel, where we fit in the wild and nature on the planet, but that helps us understand where we fit in our interpersonal relationships. There's a connectedness and also connectedness to a higher power that joins us all. And that's a very strong place to be for all of us, to know that we're not in this alone. We're all connected. And with that strength, I think we will be a better people for it.
It's so interesting.
That's a bit soapboxy. I hope not.
No,
That is the why of my writing.
One of the things I think is so interesting, I'm sitting here and I'm wondering to myself, could you set this book anywhere else but the Low Country and on these communities? And I don't think you can. I think you have such a strong connection to setting, and also that setting shapes the people. And as you say, there are scenes within this book that are just uniquely this place. So what is it about this area that you keep coming back to and you think, there's so much to draw from here?
It is, but it's first of all, it's my backyard. And so I know it so well. I am on the turtle team for 22 years. And when I work with all these animals, so that there's an authenticity to the relationship that the characters have with wildlife, because it's through my own eyes and my own work. There's a consistency to all nature, no matter where you are. Here, it's the ocean, the tide coming in and out. You have the sea turtles, no matter what goes on in the politics of the world, the sea turtles will come back in April to lay those nests, and they have for over 100 million years. Now, the species I'm studying now are whales, and I'm very excited about it, but I'm off. I am not going to be doing whales in South Carolina. So I'll be in Maine, and I'm going to Alaska, and I probably Newfoundland. I don't know where I'm going to set the book, but I'll use the marine life in my same methods, but the setting will be different. And the book I'm setting in London is quite different.
It's a little hard to have whales in London.
A little hard, yeah. I'm actually going to be in the city, so there aren't going to be a lot of it's a historical actually, but let's talk about that next year when the book comes
Okay, yes,
out.
fair enough. We'll keep our
But I do love London and I miss it. It's one of the I think it's my favorite city in the world.
It is a wonderful place.
Mm.
I really love living here. I feel very lucky to have been able to
Yeah.
do all of those things. So I have a question from a reader, Susan, and she wants to know, when you finish a book, do the characters stick with you when you focus on your next book, which may be in the case of this series we've talked about a little bit, or are you sort of anxious to quote unquote put them to bed and move on to
Well,
something new?
what a good question, because absolutely it's hard to let go. And they infiltrate every pore of your being. You know, you're when I finish a book, I've been sleeping in my dreams with these characters. I do use dreams quite effectively as a writer.
Hmm.
And it takes me several weeks to shift, to sort of unload. And that's why my process is to be researching animals. Like I've been researching the whales for a while, but I won't write the novel probably for another year or two because I don't know the story yet. So that gives me time to do other books, or like the books like the Beach House book where I know the characters, or the middle grade book, which I'm going to write the next one.
Mhm.
So that when I'm ready to move into the next big book with whales, I can pull it all together and it's compartmentalized. But it takes time to let go. It absolutely does.
I see. So there's some things kind of percolating in the back of your mind, and then when you need them, you pull them up, and
Mhm.
maybe in the future they'll get used again.
But it's not like writing two books at the same time. Because if you remember, I said I don't have a story. I'm just learning. I'm just out in the water, or I'm working with the animals, talking to the people who care for them, writing character sketches, possibilities, but I'm not writing a story. When I'm writing a novel, I'm writing that novel and only that one novel at a time. So I do have to put them away before I actually say, okay, let me pull this volumes of research and start writing the next one.
Absolutely. It's so interesting talking to authors because everybody has a slightly different process.
Yes.
You're the first person I've ever met who has that such a deep connection with nature within their books, that you're pulling this idea of focusing around a species and drawing themes from that. I just find that absolutely fascinating.
Well, it's like with the Beach House when I started out. That's when I began the process because I knew I wanted to use my books as a force for good and of making people aware. I didn't want to proselytize or teach. That's not my role. But I knew if I could help them become aware of the species, they would care, because all my interactions with the public on the beach as a turtle team member, people really do care. And so for example, a sea turtle comes to shore every 20 some years to when she matures to lay her nest. She comes back home to the area of her birth and she drops her eggs, and her biological model as a reptile is to then cover the eggs, camouflage it, and then leave, never to return to that nest. That's her model. But in a human parallel, when a mother leaves, that's abandonment.
Mhm.
So that's how I took, okay, that theme of abandonment, I can bring out from what I learned from the turtles, enrich in the story and the backdrop without teaching that to my characters about turtles leave their eggs, but rather I had the character feel she was abandoned by her parents,
Mhm.
by her mother. And that was an overriding theme in the first book, that reconciliation. So that's what I look at with every species. What am I trying to show? And when it clicked for me in the summer of Lost and Found that it was about self-exploration and living each day to the fullest, then I went back and the rewrites, I could hone that point.
Mhm. You can feel that come through in that first draft, and then
Yes, 100%. Yeah. But that first draft, I think most writers, you too, Julia, will agree. You have to finish it before you go, wait, I know what the book's really about.
completely.
You think you do.
So it's funny. I was talking to my father once about, because I used to be a journalist, and I was an editor for reporters and all of these things, and I really love that editorial process. I love having feedback. I love getting through. I find writing the novel itself exhausting, as you
Yeah.
said. when you got to the end of this book, you kind of had a moment of just
I'm surprised I had any hair left at all.
exactly, especially given the circumstances that
Yeah.
everything was written under. And I just love that moment of getting to go back and refine and sit there and say, okay, now I really know my characters. Now I know how to deepen their motivation and understand what are the common themes that I want to pull out here. And sometimes it surprises me when readers will come up and say, that was so interesting. That book was really about identity. And I think it was.
You're right. Thank you.
I didn't even realize. And I thought, oh, that's clever of
Exactly.
me. I'm so glad I did.
I love that when you go, oh, well, thank you. Yes, I did that, didn't I?
It's completely
But
intentional.
But this is what I think is so great about the process, and why I really say to young writers, learn your craft.
Mm.
This is, if you can have a beautiful singing voice, but you're not going to be a Pavarotti until you learn your craft. And so the first draft is guts. You got to put your heart out there. What do you want to say? But then you kind of crystallize what it is you want to say and how is the best way to use this medium. Like you said, your training then is putting on your tool belt and you looking at pacing and all the dialogue, the diagramming. But the key is honing the moments for what is it you really want to say, what are the motivations, so that when you get to that climax, your reader's in the seat with you wondering what's going to happen. And it could be a third of the way through, or it could be the last scene. It doesn't matter, but as you're the god of this novel, you decide when that moment's going to be. And if you do your job right, your characters will close the book and think, yes, yes.
That's where that sense of emotional resonance comes from. And I imagine what carries readers through a series that's been going on for years. You feel connected to people, you feel connected to the story, and that's not a mistake. That comes because you're looking for those moments that you can build. You're trying to find, how do you show those themes, rather than sitting there and saying, well, the theme of this book is abandonment, so
exactly.
It's deeper than that. It's more it's richer because of that time spent, I think.
Thank you. I do feel very fortunate to have a series. I know there's a lot of series out there, but to be one of the lucky ones who has a series that is followed by a lot of people. And I don't take it for granted. I know when people say, and I think particularly now because of the pandemic, familiarity is really special. I don't know about you, but I binge watched a lot of TV during the pandemic. And confession time. And I love the continuity of it and just the whole, I didn't want a piece, I wanted the whole thing. And I think that's what people feel with the Beach House. Oh, thank you. It's like getting together with old friends. And I love getting those letters. So I won't abandon my readers by saying that's the last one. I just could never do that.
The comfort thing for me during this pandemic was rewatching a lot of the classic Hollywood films from, the golden age of Hollywood, that I haven't seen in years, or just have a very special sentimental meaning to me. And so my list of movies that I've seen in this last year is really rich in old Hollywood favorites. I think.
Okay, I have to tell you something, a confession for old Hollywood at Christmas. I think everyone had a favorite moment and mine was Christmas. And we had a Dickens Christmas. And me and my sisters, the women of Windover, all came to Isle of Palms, at Christmas. And because they're still there. They didn't go home. That's another question. That's another book. But at any rate, at Christmas, we had a Dickens Christmas where we all were watching the Dickens films. We read Dickens books. We dressed up as Dickens. We had a quiz. We had a Dickensian feast.
Wow.
And because we did that great theme of old films, the old classic books, it was something we could all share. And I think that familiarity again came through.
Absolutely. It's very comforting, as you say. There's something there. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I do have a question about a different type of familiarity. So during the pandemic, you and several of your friends started an incredibly popular show. Do you want to talk a little bit about Friends in Fiction? And I know a lot of people here are big fans. So, but some
Well,
people, are still learning and catching up with the trend here.
I am delighted. This is talk about one of the best things that came out of the pandemic. What was found is me and Mary Kay Andrews and Patty Callahan Henry are friends, and we were all having books coming out in April, May. And of course, book tours canceled, everything shut down. So we got on the something called a Zoom. I didn't know what a Zoom was. Had to look it up, had to call my daughter. And we got on a Zoom, and I invited Christy Woodson Harvey and Kristen Harmel because they are fellow gallery authors and they had the same boat. So we were talking, the five of us, and actually Christina McMorris was on the group too. And we said, let's take it on Facebook. And I'm thinking, maybe 20 people, 30 people will watch. And we started talking about our books. And the next thing you know, people were joining by 1,000 a week at the beginning. It was just growing so fast.
Mm.
And we became a little more tech savvy and we polished our act a little bit, but we kept at the core, five women who are friends talking to one another and the camaraderie. And now we're up to over 40,000 members.
Mm-hmm.
And our shows are watched a couple 100,000 times. And when you realize that kind of an outreach, and Julia, you were a guest on our show. We were delighted to have you. Having authors come visit and talk to us about their book in a friendly, open, we get into the details of the book, but we also have a good time like we are now. And I think that readers or viewers have come to expect that. So it's Friends in Fiction, and it's on Wednesday nights, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And we invite everyone to join us. This week, we're having Nancy Thayer, who wrote Beach Reunion. And I just can't tell you what a joy it is to have so many wonderful authors come on the show. And I think the same is felt by our viewers.
Well, it's so funny having done a lot of interviews and a lot of live events, and the live events are wonderful for me because obviously being in the UK, I don't have the opportunity to get out and meet readers as often in the US, Canada, where I'm primarily published. And so the idea of getting to do these virtual events is wonderful. But I've done a lot of them, and let me tell you, nobody else made me feel like I was just sitting on the porch with a glass of wine having a chat with other authors who just really like chatting with each other. They enjoy each other's company. And also they have some questions about, in my case, we talked about setting and craft. And I find that such a joy. It's fun to be able to do that and to feel relaxed and feel welcomed.
Well, thank you. That's exactly what we hope you feel. So we have to get your bag. When is your next book coming out, by the way?
December. I had 2 in 1 year, which is wild.
Oh my goodness. We have to have you back.
I would love to.
So what's the title of your next book?
The Last Dance of the Debutante. So we'll be talking about debutante,
I love the title.
gowns and balls and all of those things. So
in what city is it set?
It's in London in 1958, and it's about the last group of debutantes to be presented to the Queen. So they did away with presentation parties after 1958. So it follows one woman who goes, and she sort of isn't necessarily expecting to become a debutante. So she's launched into this world, and she has this, she's at a crossroads at a point in the book, and she has to decide, where does she want to go? Does she follow tradition, or does she sort of follow what she really loves, which is, learning and reading, and does she want to go to university? And a family secret bubbles up to the surface and throws all of that into chaos, which I always love doing in books. So
I can hardly wait. This is my kind of book. So when is it coming out? I'm going to write this down and try and get you back on the show, girlfriend.
Live, guys. December 7th.
Okay, actually, I think I'm going to work on this. We want you back.
Well, I would love to come back. I had such a lovely time, and the group of readers in the community you've built is so special. And I mentioned before, I think when I was talking to Patty on Ask an Author, my father is a member of Friends in Fiction, and occasionally we send little notes and things like that.
Excellent.
So it's fun. I think it's fun for readers to see a community of people that's so enthusiastic about books and so excited for just to chat with other people.
And I have to say, when I've been going out on book tour, just minimally, just a little bit compared to the past, but every time so many people from Friends in Fiction who are members come up and say, Thank you. You got us through the pandemic. It's my community. Wow, we do not take that for granted. We get teary eyed.
Oh, I don't
So
blame you. It's
it's a great
wonderful.
community.
Absolutely. Oh, it makes me so happy.
I'm sure I got made this tough list because of Friends in Fiction and all my friends out there. So thank you all.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to chat a little bit about some of the things that you've been reading and enjoying recently. We've had some questions about, what's on your either your list of things to read or what you've been recommending.
Oh. Well, I just want to jump in with one book in particular, and it kind of caught me by surprise, and I just finished it. And it's called Trouble at the Water by Rebecca Dwight Bruff, Bruff, and it's her debut novel. And it's one of those books like you mentioned Patty Callahan, and she was called to write this book about joy and C.S. Lewis. I remember back in the day, she didn't know why, but she couldn't not write this book. And this is how Rebecca Dwight Bruff felt when she came from Texas all the way to South Carolina and learned about Robert Smalls. He was a freed slave and a war hero, but he also was the first Black congressman in the United States. And he had a lot to do with starting with President Lincoln public schools. So this is a man who should be known about, this great historical figure. And yet not a lot was written about him. And so she wrote this book called Trouble of the Water from not a hymn, what's the song? Anyway, a folk song. And it's his life, but her voice is so spot on. It's like she was meant to write this because the voice came alive of Robert Smalls. And I listened to the audiobook, and I have to say, the narrator had such a beautiful, rich baritone that you wouldn't believe for a second it wasn't Robert Smalls. So that's one I would recommend. There are, of course, all the fans and all the fans of Friends in Fiction know that The Newcomer by Mary Kay Andrews is out, and Christy Woodson Harvey, Under the Southern Sky, which is truly a great book.
I love her books. I really do.
Her books are really, this was, I think, one of her very best. And we're looking forward to Kristen Harmel's The Forest of Vanishing Stars. And we really do love and support each other's books. And last night we had Pam Jenoff, who's a wonderful historical writer. And The Girl with the Blue Star is a beautiful story, historical, about the Jews in Poland during the war. And it was powerful, and I highly recommend it.
Oh yeah, you must be reading so many wonderful, wonderful books with.
Oh, Julia, it's like so many books arrive every day, and it's like it's Christmas every day.
Every day, and then if you're like me, you sit there and think, "Am I going to read everything?" Because that's the thing. There's so many wonderful books being published right now.
Almost too many. I mean, it's really fast. I asked Zibby Owens, who is a tremendous book influencer in New York, and during a podcast interview, and I said, "How do you manage?" Because her books must be on through the roof. And she gave really good advice. She said, "I read the first 100 pages slowly, then I skim." And that is a good advice because you have to slow down to appreciate an author's voice. But if you're going to continue after 100 pages, but also if you have to read the book, you can skim, but you know what you're feeling in tone and word choice and everything that the author delivers. By the way, will you send me The Last Debutante? So
Absolutely.
because it's England, just do it digitally. I know the cost of sending a book.
Well, we do share a publicist, so I'm sure there's a way that I could make sure that book gets to you. So
yes, Michelle's great, isn't she?
Wonderful. She's wonderful. I think people sometimes are curious about the whole team of people behind a book. And it's one of the reasons my habit is actually to read the acknowledgements page before I read the book. And I don't know why I started doing it, but I just love it as sort of a little nod to the fact that it takes a village. So
it does. I really appreciate I think I have the best team in the world, and I'm really grateful. You are so grateful.
Yes. I think one of the things that I hope people get from these interviews is not only are authors, again, not alone, but authors also tend to really be very generous with their time and talking about review authors and creating a whole show that people can come on and talk about their books and readers can find each other, and it's just wonderful. It creates a lovely environment around reading, and that's what it should be about, isn't it?
It is. And we'll like your show too. I mean, how wonderful you started this. How many shows have you done now?
I think you might be 19 or 20. So
Wow.
yes, so we're rolling along. I'm going to take a little bit of a break here in June just to catch my breath and do some reading. Um,
Yes.
Genuinely, I enjoy it so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk to people, and I feel like I learn things every single time I go through
Yes.
and do one of these shows.
I every time I talk to an author and we hear the writing tips on Friends and
Mhm.
Fiction, it's like, oh, we're taking notes, you know, because the best thing about being an author, if you're going to continue to grow, is to continue to listen and read and take classes and really you change. Because I've seen fiction writing change over the course of the 35 years that I have been writing.
Mhm.
And you have to move with the time. You keep your voice and your intent, but you always have to be aware of what the readers are wanting as well. And that's where a good team comes in handy. Talking to other authors is great, but just again, being like Joseph Campbell said, putting your ear to the ground,
Yeah, and being curious. I think sometimes
being
it's just
curious.
about being curious and knowing that there's a story in there somewhere that you want to tell. Absolutely.
Yes, 100%.
I could talk to you for hours. This is
Me too. Well, when I get to London, I'll call you.
Yes, please do. Please do. Well, I do feel like I need to start saying goodbye and letting you go because I know this is a big week for you. So, but could you tell everybody where they can find your book and if they also want to follow you and follow perhaps Friends in Fiction as well? That would be great.
Thank you. I have a website which is very fancy now. It's just all redone. So please come take a look. It's www.maryalicemonroe.com. And you'll see all my interests there in the children's book as well.
Mhm.
Then you can find me on the author page for Friends in Fiction and on Instagram, of course. And I said Friends in Fiction from Mary Alice Monroe. And then for Friends in Fiction, we have the Facebook page, www.friendsinfiction.com is our website. And you can find us, if you don't want to do Facebook, we're on YouTube. You can watch us live on YouTube or parade.com, which a lot of people don't realize. So we're out there and we'd love for you to join us.
You are, and it's again, it's absolutely worth making that appointment on Wednesday evenings. So,
Bring a glass of wine.
yes, oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Good luck
I
with
had a
it.
great time, Julia. Thank you for your patience with the technical
Oh,
difficulties.
not at all. It's my pleasure. So good luck with the rest of the book tour, and I hopefully we'll be speaking again sometime soon.
Thank you, Julia. Bye bye.
Bye.